Welcome, friends. Welcome. My name is Lucas Meyerly, and I'm excited to welcome you on behalf of Pendle Hill, a Quaker center open to all for spirit-led learning, retreat, and community. I'm joining you from Lenape land on what is now known as Philadelphia. Since 1930, Pendle Hill has been an experiment in spiritual learning and a spiritual learning community. Hello to our leaders, to our alumni, and to those who are new to us tonight. We're especially grateful to the Friends Foundation for the Aging, which provides invaluable support to Pendle Hill's online programming and which supported the production of Baltimore Yearly Meetings End of Life Working Group's new resource, A Tender Time, Quaker Voices on the End of Life. Before we say a little bit more about our program tonight, I wanted to go over a few brief tech aspects first. If you have any technical difficulties or questions tonight, please message Tech Assistance, who is Francis, and they'll do their best to support you. Their name is Tech Assistance Francis if you're looking for it in the chat. You may have noticed that this program is being recorded. The recordings will be available to registrants, and you should have received an email with a link where you can find those recordings. At some points during the session, the presenters may invite you to raise your hand, which you can do with the raise hand reaction, which you can find in the menu at the bottom of your screen. Also, in the top right corner, there are viewing options for the speakers that we'll further explain in the chat, that we'll be further explaining in the chat. And then lastly, we've enabled live transcription, so you are able to access closed captioning. With all those details out of the way, it is my pleasure to pass the program over to Patty. Patty.
Thank you, Lucas, and good evening. And I should say good morning to those of you who are joining us from down under. It's nice to see you. I am Patty Nesbitt, and I'm the clerk of the Baltimore Yearly Meeting End of Life Working Group. I'm joined here by two dear friends, also members of the working group, Kristen Zimmett and Eileen Stancione. We are really glad you're here. We know this is a scary topic for many, and applaud you and welcome you and appreciate your taking this journey with us, which we view as a process of companioning one another in love in our last phases of our lives. Our format for this series will reflect our individual strengths and styles. Each evening that we're here, one of us is going to take the lead, but they will always leave time for reflection, sharing in some breakout groups, and then we will come back further in for general sharing. As you know, these workshops have grown out of our book called A Tender Time. Quaker Voices on the End of Life. I want you to know we do not expect that you have read this book in order to participate. This is a fairly universal experience. None of us get out alive. And so you will all have experiences and perspectives and insights that are welcome here, whether you read this book or not. At the same time, the book is chock full of resources and queries and a lot of informative text that many individual friends have written thank you notes to us personally saying, thank you, this has been so helpful. I just received this information about so-and-so's health. I really value the input. And it's been useful in many meetings too that have developed supportive committee structures or committees to be able to help one another who are dealing with challenging times. Throughout our seminars, these next 3 weeks, we suggest that you take serious note of times where you feel really strongly positive and strongly negative in any kind of a response or reaction to what you hear. Spiritual directors teach us that these points of strong resonance or strong resistance indicate our growing edges, where spirit is trying to get our attention. So we want to encourage you to notice and to listen and to be open to your own inward teacher and listen to what the messages are there. So with that, I want to say thank you for taking this step with us and turn the evening over to Kristen, who will lead us tonight in the topic, general topic of aging. And take it away, dear friend.
Thank you, Patty. And I am so thrilled that we are gathered here 180 strong. It is so evident from your being here what a hunger there is for community as we age, for sharing our wisdom, our excitement, our solutions, our friendships. And this is not something that the generation before us would have thought to do. So this is an extraordinary moment. I'm hoping actually that each one of you will feel moved to go forth from here and talk further, spread the questions, spread the concerns among people that you care about, so that instead of being gathered 180 strong by next week, we'll be 1,800 strong. Tonight, my hope is that we provoke you with good questions, with queries that will go deeper than perhaps you have thought to go into what it means to age. And I can't give the answers. Patty and Eileen can't give the answers for you because your answers are unique to you. But we can provide the questions. If you don't come upon, the response immediately that you want, let this be the opening through which Spirit begins to speak to you. There will be a few silent interludes in which you can take what you've been listening to and turn inward and see what your inward teacher is saying. There will be 3 special themes tonight. The first theme will be your models for aging. What are they? What have you unconsciously absorbed? What do you assume is going to be how you age? The second will be, how are you changing? And you're probably, if you are like me, changing in countless ways, both positive and worrisome, pluses and minuses. And this is a time of extraordinary growth, maybe more than any other time, other than just being born. So changes we'll look at as our second theme. And our third theme of the evening will be, given our models, given our changes, what do we see as our work as we go forward in our age? So if you're ready, let's begin. Let's begin with your models of age. And by models, I don't mean the Legos in the basement. I mean the presumptions, the stories that have become such a part of you that you have absorbed. We swim in a sea of assumptions and we can't help taking them in. And we don't always know what they are. And it is very useful to become aware, because then you have a choice about them. Then you are not unconsciously enacting what somebody else tells you should be how to age, how to feel about aging. So there are at least 3 major sources of models, and maybe you have more in your life, for how to age. And one comes from your family, one comes from your culture, and one from your faith. So let's take a moment and absorb what that could mean. In my family, from the moment I can remember, my father used to joke, and his big joke about aging was, we have nothing to fear but longevity. And he would always give this belly laugh when he said it, and everybody, all the grown-ups would nod their heads. And me as a kid, I would think, oh my God, I'm supposed to be afraid of being old. This is not going to be a good thing. This is going to be like stepping off, the deep end in the pool when all of a sudden there's nothing under my feet. I don't want to be aged. So now that I am an old woman and proud to claim it, I look at this inner voice that my parents gave me, and I want to change the message. I want to say no to it. I say, we have nothing to fear. Period. We are equal to whatever Spirit will ask of us. I have a dear friend whose family motto, both in action and in speech, was, we don't take no handouts. What that meant for aging is they said no to home health. They said no to Meals on Wheels. They said no to hospice. They didn't take any handouts, and they didn't take it from their church community. They didn't take it from their friend community. They were proud. And that's what they were taught to be. And they missed out on a huge amount of community. And I watched them and I grieved for that. So I wished that my friend, as an old woman, were able to say, I don't see it as handouts. I see it as an extended hand, and I will take any hand that reaches to mine. Patty, I think you had an example from your family.
Yeah, I recognize that in my family, we couldn't talk about anyone being seriously ill, or if they went to the hospital, sometimes we couldn't talk about what's going on with them. And certainly we couldn't talk about death. So it taught me to be really afraid of these last passages. And obviously I decided I wasn't going to be afraid of that. And here I am trying to demystify death and bring us all together to be able to walk us together. But reflecting on that was like, it meant that when someone had big C, you can't talk about C. It meant that you couldn't support one another through cancer either. So I've decided that didn't work for me at all. Would never have been a nurse very successfully to do that.
Eileen?
Well, I have stories similar to both of you, actually. Patty, in my neighborhood, when someone had cancer, they would stay inside and not come out again. And it would happen one after another after another. It was terrifying, really. In terms of aging, my father had the famous saying, getting old is for sissies. And that particular mindset, I found it very scary, that the idea that getting old meant that you would no longer be confident, that you would be afraid. So, I decided, that wasn't what I wanted to believe. I certainly don't believe that now. And I have a very optimistic kind of nature. So I just don't buy into that idea that the future will be negative, even frightening. And I realize that there is a lot of negativity in aging. There's a lot of negativity in being a toddler. There's a lot of negativity in being a teenager. That we go through stages in life And each of them has both positive and negative. So really growing older is very much along that line, another stage of development that we have to go through. And hopefully we have companions to go through it with us. And if not, it'd be worthy to try to find them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to add that although we have all identified something from our family that we do not want to perpetuate, it doesn't mean that we don't love and honor how they chose, and still choose to live. So the second source of models that we are all bearing inside of ourselves may be harder to rebel against, and that's our culture. I don't know about you, but the culture I'm in, when you turn 65, you get balloons that go over the hill. And they don't tell you that after this hill, there's another hill and a hill after that and a really big mountain in the distance. It's just over the hill. You're done. My culture of origin says young women are sexy. Old women are at best, they're dignified and well put together. But the greatest compliment that people think they're giving me, they look at me and say, "You don't look 76." And I think, oh, so they're telling me that there's something wrong with how 76 looks, that they think they've given me this wonderful compliment. And I usually reply, hey, this is what 76 is supposed to look like. You are all supposed to be the age that you are. So there is another culture that I studied when I was in high school. And the name of the country was Abkhazia, and you probably never heard of it, but it is actually a semi-independent republic in the Caucasus, near the Republic of Georgia. And in this real country, you can't run for office politically until you are in your 90s. So we've only got babies running right now. And in Abkhazia, you can't audition to be a member of the elite dance troupe, which is a cultural treasure, until you are 100. So I would much rather live in Abkhazia myself. And it is my hope that collectively you and I will begin to shift the cultural messages around us for the next generation to absorb. Patty, I think you wanted to talk about something about your culture too.
Well, I want to tell you the story about my friend Miriam, who was she was the first certified organics farmer in the state of Virginia. And she had a cardiac condition in her 60s. And her doctor literally told her to go home and sit on her porch and get ready to go to a nursing home. And she did. She sat in the rocking chair for a while, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. And progressively, she got more and more depressed every day. After 10 days, she said, phooey, I'm getting back out on that tractor. And she did. But it showed us the culture of healthcare. This was maybe 30 years ago, but it made a big impact on me that there's a certain point where you're supposed to retire and stop doing what you love doing. And doesn't, obviously we haven't slowed down yet. We're trying not to, at least. Yeah.
Great. Ronnie
So there you
Gilbert wrote a poem, a song about that about 30 years ago. She was a member of the Weavers, and she wrote, "Don't put me in no rocking chair." It's worth looking up. So the third source of our models that we take in unconsciously sometimes is probably the deepest ingrained, and that's the faith into which you were born. I was born into secular Judaism, a secular form of Judaism. And what we were taught by implication, by stories, by modeling, is that the greatest virtue is to question. That Moses questioned God, Abraham questioned God, the great Talmud scholars read one another's work and then wrote in the margins their questions and their different interpretations, the cultivation of the life of the mind, the active participation in making meaning was what I was always taught, to engage in dialogue, to challenge assumptions. I had a very dear friend at the time, and she would come to services with me, and I would go to services with her. And in her faith culture, the greatest of all virtues was obedience. So, what are the consequences when she and I now go to doctors and have to make major life decisions? When we consider where we're going to live, consider what treatment we're going to accept. How you look at it, if you are taught to question or if you're taught obedience, is enormously different. I became a Quaker, evidently. And I've been thinking about what is the unspoken model that I absorbed from Quakerism. And what it is that I learned reliance. It means that I know that when I go inward, it may take a while, but when I go inward, I am sure that there is wisdom, that there are answers there. I am sure that I will meet that which I am meant to meet, that spirit will be present. I am sure that my community will support me in whatever I discover there. And reliance has been the greatest gift. So although we've been talking a lot about what gifts we want to give back or what models we want to not perpetuate, that's one I would like to claim and keep. Patty, how about your background religiously, your faith?
Right. Well, I grew up Roman Catholic, and like many Christian religions, um, hell and judgment were big themes. My father went on retreats and came home with horrible stories of the fires of hell. Um, it we were terrified, and so we had to, it wasn't just have to be obedient. We also couldn't ask questions. There are a number of things you had to sort of stay in line. Um, I have met many a Quaker when they are going through challenging illnesses who want who want to see the priest just to make sure that they have all their bases covered. And I know the evangelicals have a big kind of thing, and the fear of judgment is huge. So that comes out of the original sin concept, and that's not one I want to hold on to. I think many of us have struggled with that for years, to the point where we can kind of say, okay, we really believe in the original blessing, but there's a piece of us sometimes that's just not 100% when it comes down to it. It's like, I better have that last confession after all.
And what is it like to get older believing in hell?
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I knew as a little kid that I wasn't a good Catholic because I didn't believe that my sins put Jesus on the cross. But what if I didn't have that opening to understand that that wasn't true? It's terrifying. Yeah.
Eileen, think you have a quote for us, an angle for us?
Well, I have a wonderful quote from the Philadelphia Yearly Meeting, Faith and Practice from 2017. Completing your life in spirit-led aging. Accept with serenity the approach of each new stage of life. Welcome the approach of old age, both for oneself and for others, as an opportunity for wisdom, for detachment from turmoil, and for greater attachment to the light.
Mhm. I love it.
I can sign on to that one. Thank you. Yeah.
So, dear friends out there, it's your turn. And unfortunately, with 180 of us, we can't all speak to one another. But what I invite you to do is to take a little time silently now, and in the silence for maybe 2 minutes, dwell with what models you were given. Set one of the questions, please. What beliefs about aging did you get from your family, your culture, your faith? And if you're writing this down, then circle models that fit your spirit and cross out any that don't fit your spirit. Friends, please come back now.
Mhm. Okay.
I know it was short, but it's a beginning. It's a beginning of a journey of inner discovery. Raise your hand. You can use literally, if you found you were given a model and it feels really good to you. Okay. And raise your hand if you found you were given a model you would just as soon discard. Some of those for sure. So supposing that you want to release some old models and create a new model for yourself. And one of the wonderful ways to do this is to choose a person from real life, from a book, who has the qualities that you most want to bring into your aging. And I want to give you two of my personal models. One is Elizabeth, who was a fine artist, and her specialty was color, vibrant color on big splashy canvases. And Elizabeth found herself in her 80s, confined to a wheelchair, in a nursing home, and losing her color vision. Not her whole vision, but simply the vision that had been the mainstay of her art, of her life. And did she fold? No. She called me up and she said, Kristen, I want you to go to the art store now. And I want you to get for me that set of 100 pencils, you know, the one that is the darkest midnight black on one end and the purest shining white on the other end, and all the shades in between. And I did. And I came back and she retrained herself to be a black and white artist. And she taught art.
Wow.
Yeah, that was Elizabeth. My other model is Marge, who at age 80 said, every year on my birthday, I'm going to start to learn something I have never done before. So at 80, she learned to tap dance. At 81, she asked her son to take her surfing. And by 90, in case you're wondering, she took a lover who was 75 years old, a young kid. So those are my shining personal models. I want their resilience, their indomitability, their sense of adventure. Maybe Eileen, I think you wanted to tell us your people.
Well, actually, I have two also, my sisters. My sister Lillian lives very close to me, and she throughout her entire life was a person that helped organizations. She donated money, she and her husband, as well as their time. So she really gave to the community. And one of the things that is very interesting to me is that she continues to do so at advanced age and while in a wheelchair. So she's quite a role model. And then my other sister, who will be 90 in January, is very, very similar in the sense that she was married to a minister, and she would play the organ and she would help out in every conceivable way. And the church has always said that they got two for the price of one. She was interested in the community and got involved with the Mental Health Association. So she did many things, and she continues to do that as well, even though she's stooped and walks very, very slowly. And another trait that she has that really I deeply admire, and that is that she tries extremely hard to do whatever she can on her own. She doesn't want to be pampered. And she has that kind of pride, but in a good way. And I just really admire both of my sisters, and I hope that I can be certainly as they are.
Thank you. Lillian and Noreen.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you take someone like that to be your personal model, you notice that Eileen is not saying, you know, boy, I wish I could be that way, but that's not really who I am. And isn't it too bad? You're not saying, I wish I had their courage. I wish I had their, spirit. You're saying, I claim her courage. That courage is in me, and it will live in me. I will embody it. I see how it's done, and I take that for myself as a gift to myself. So, and to do that, you have to let go of whatever is opposite inside you. If you're taking someone's courage on, okay. I'm not saying you're not afraid, but you can choose courage anyhow to coexist with the fear. You can choose friends who will support that in you, and that's important. And you can find whatever gives you strength and joy to persist in being that, which is your new model. And if it gives you strength and joy, keep doing it. Keep practicing it. So again, I'm going to invite you to take 2 minutes in silence. set 2 of our queries, please. I'd like you to name, I invite you to name, if you can, 1 or more of your own heroes or heroines of aging, of how to age. How do you choose to be like that person? And if you like, you can write the name you choose in the chat so we can all read that person's name. Please come back. Friends, I have been enjoying reading the names that you have put in the chat, and I feel that we are not just 180 strong. We each have the presence with us of so many more people. I want to say one more thing about models, and that is that you are a model. However you are, whatever qualities you have, the next generation is watching you, your friends are watching you, and I leave it up to you whose model and what kind of model you will be. We're up to the second theme, which is change. And sometimes you choose to change, as we've chosen a change in our models, and sometimes change just comes at you. And then you either fight it or you grow with it. We're all changing, and age is a mixed bag, to say the least. So last week, I went to the eye doctor and she said, "Great news. Your distance vision is way better than it was before. And this is because you're getting old." And not so good news. Your near vision is much worse than it was before. And this is because you're getting old. So pluses and minuses. We have change in so many dimensions that I can't quite say them all. There is change to the body, change to your work, to your finances, to your physical environment, to the people around you, to your faith. Let's just take a couple of these. Raise your hand if any change is happening nowadays as you age in your body. Anybody? Oh, okay. So maybe less energy, a little more sleep, a little slower healing. Your joints don't feel the same. Your balance doesn't feel the same. Your eyes aren't the same. Your memory might be a little different. Almost any aspect of our physical body is morphing. So each thing we do might be a more conscious, deliberate task. And there are small tasks. But beneath the small tasks, there is a larger set of queries. And each one of these changes is calling us to go deep. It's asking, do I honor my limits? Do I still honor all my possibilities? Can I make peace with my body? Do I tend my body as if it were my beloved? And maybe it's asking you still more things. So each time there is a change, look for the deeper message. Because if you listen to that, if you engage with those questions, who knows where it will take you? It might take you to a place in which you believe you are worthy of care, a place at which you savor each thing you do, although there are less of them. It might take you to a place where you say, I am not my body, which is an extraordinary place to arrive. Patty, you wanted to talk about a change, a physical change?
Yeah, I will, because it's so it's affected me. My whole summer has been changed because I broke my toe, and it's affected me being able to walk. Walking is my primary spiritual practice. And it's meant this entire summer. Um, I've been I'm really seeking for another way to to get into a different pattern of movement and spiritual grounding. So it's been a real loss. I haven't, I appreciate your approach, Kristen, but this has not been a gift to me. I haven't been able to find any gift in this yet. I know years ago when I was sick, I could find the gift in that, but there's no gift here yet that I have been able to discern. I just have to sit with it and continually live with the changes it's made in my body, um, my mental status, and my spiritual sense of who I am. That's just, you know, why we hold each other in the light, because we don't get through this easily sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you. So how about raise your hand if there's been a change in your physical possessions or your physical environment, or you think there's a change coming? Got a few hands up. Okay. I think Eileen, you wanted to speak to that in particular.
Yes, it's something that's on my mind quite a bit. Often friends, when they're reaching old age, find themselves needing to move. And it may be a lack of energy or stamina, or perhaps they're isolated. Perhaps people in their neighborhood or their friends have died, and they don't have anybody. Their spouse may have died or partner. When my grandfather was 90, I think around 90, he had a farm and his wife died, and it seemed like some of his neighbors were dying, and he wound up going to a home, as they called it in those days. It certainly wasn't anything he wanted. But he made the best of it. He fixed wheelchairs while he was there. So he was, a very special man. So it's just hard, I think, for many people to keep up with all their belongings and the upkeep of their home or their condo or apartment. For me, my husband and I currently live in our home, and the idea of selling our home is very, very hard for me. As a child, I lived near a wooded area, and I spent a lot of time in the woods because my best friend lived on the other side of the woods, and we would meet and hide out and talk. So as an adult, I always wanted a home that was wooded, and now I have one, and it's it's tree. There's lots of trees. We have a stream. We have squirrels and deer, and groundhogs and beautiful, gorgeous birds and squirrels, and it's just a little bit of heaven. It really is. So I'm not ready to leave my home. And will I ever be ready? I don't know. I will feel, how will I feel when the demands overtake the amount of energy that we have? What does one do with that? Will I be able to part with something that's brought me so much happiness? And I think I will. I think I will be able to. I'll find other ways for comfort and safety, and a close alignment with nature, which is really important. So once again, it's the choices that we make which bring us closer to spirit and closer to love. And that's really what we're seeking.
Thank you. That's beautiful. So the deep queries that we might say that changes in our possessions require of us is, what is essential to me now? How do I grieve? How do I sanctify wherever I go? How do I take home with me? So the changes, we don't have time to explore as much as I would love, but raise your hand if there are changes in your relationships now. With a partner, with a friend. Somebody is grumpier with age, frailer, kinder, wiser, less present, more available. Changes. And there's a deep challenge in age. To whom will I choose to commit myself? Can love see me through all the way? And this is one I could talk to you all evening about. But I did address my queries, and I did come in the end to decide, by addressing those queries, by living those queries, that love changes, but it does not die. So there will also be changes in faith. Let's just raise our hands. Anybody having a change in their faith? This is a great time of life for doubt. Is there really going to be a God in afterlife when I get there? And it's not a hypothetical question anymore. It's a relevant, pressing question. It's now. And the queries are, can I risk reaching out with everything I've got? Can I wait in unknowing, trusting that light is there? Patty, I think you wanted to talk about that.
Right. What I just want to do is read something from Dorothy Steer. Just as a way of bridging here, Kristen, into your next section. And
thank you.
And this is something that we actually quoted in our book. As I grow older, I seem to need more time for inner stillness. This can happen in the midst of daily chores or when walking in a crowd or even riding in a train. It means being still, open, reflective, holding within myself the crucible of joy and pain of all the world and lifting it up to God.
Wow. Thank you.
That's what some people have called, or why some people have called old age is a monastery of old age.
Hmm.
Richard Rohr talks about people gazing, just gazing, and it puts us into that reflective space where we are more open and receptive.
Thank you. So friends, I'd like you to take just a couple of minutes to turn inward if you wish, to look at set 3 of our queries. What is there less of in your life? What is there more of in your life as you age? And what do these changes offer to your spirit? Friends, please come back. And I hope you're leaving a lot of questions simmering on the stove to enjoy reflecting on later. So our last theme of the day, I think I can describe pretty rapidly for you, is that there are some kinds of work that are typical, that we are invited to do at this point in our lives. And people talk about retiring away from work, but actually we are asked to be drawn into some new work. And here are some typical kinds. One is completion. You're asked to complete your unpublished novel, your quilt, the journey you never took, the reunion you want to create. One is the work of release, letting go of the farm, letting go of grudges, letting go of secrets, letting go of childhood traumas, releases. One is attachment, reattachments, finding the people who were lost or disowned in your life. Reattachments. One is testaments, writing your spiritual history, writing a letter of love. One is legacies, writing a will, telling your stories, giving, mentoring to someone out of your wealth of experience. One is alter egos, finding the self who's always stood by in the wings and waited for a turn to become in you an artist, a rocker of babies, whatever it is you dream of. And one is the work of deepening, bringing your whole life's perspective to bear on the work that's always been your true work, and bringing all of that into your work, finally. So now we are going to form rooms. And you have 15 or 20 minutes. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to reflect on set 4 of our questions. What work is Spirit calling you to do now, at this time of life? What is your truest, most important work? Practical, emotional, spiritual. How can your work from now on be an expression of love? So set 4, please.
And Lucas, we can go into breakout groups if you can do that. Thank you.
I think there's a few rooms that are just closing in 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
We should now see a bunch of people come back.
So welcome back. And I can see the reluctance to come back, and that's a good sign. There is never enough time to get, because this is a bottomless topic. So my hope is that you will go forth and initiate conversations about these queries and more like them that are meaningful to you, and that we will have an ever increasing community of conversations. And you can make those conversations that never end.